So, welcome, Robert. He's got a very interesting talk tonight on the microbiome of the honeybee. And so I'll hand it over to Rob and thank him for his presentation. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. I want to talk this evening, the afternoon for me in Bangkok, about the microbiome of the honeybee. What the microbiome basically is, all the bacteria inside the gut of the alimentary tract, which goes from the mouth to the anus. Really the so-called helpful bacteria, not the diseases and things. The bacteria that are essential for any mammal or lots of other animals like bees to survive. My interest in this started trying to work out what the biome did for humans and what fiber and insoluble fiber and things did, and I couldn't work it out. It's too complicated. So I started looking at it for bees. I want to explain something first, what the microbiome is. For the body to function, there's a lot of chemical reactions which take place, in this case, within the gut, from the mouth to the anus, which are helped along by enzymes. And enzymes are like organic catalysts, which speed up or help chemical reactions. The human body produces a lot of enzymes, but it doesn't produce all the essential enzymes that the human body needs or bees need. There's a lot of bacteria in the gut that produces enzymes or does other functions that the human body itself can't perform. It's a sort of adjunct to the human body or to the bee's body that performs critical tasks that the bee or the human can't perform on its own. It needs another animal to do it. In this case, bacteria in the gut. In the human gut, from the mouth to the anus, there's something like 1,000 different bacteria. That's quite a lot of bacteria. And depending on which country you live in, so what you're exposed to, there may be some bacteria that are common across all humans, but a lot of them depend on the country you're in. Like my gut bacteria and gut biome is probably quite different to you as living in Bangkok. The whole point of the biome is to assist the body, whether it's a bee or a human, to carry out functions that are critical, like digesting food, fighting diseases. As an example, vitamin B12 cannot be produced by any animal. It can only be produced by bacteria. The only reason we survive is because there are bacteria in our gut that produce vitamin B12 for us. The human body can't produce it. This is why gut bacteria is so essential. Honeybees also have a microbiome, and unlike humans who have about 1,000 gut bacteria, the honeybee microbiome only has about 9 bacteria in their gut. 5 of these bacteria are found in all bees worldwide, and the other 5 are usually present. So 5 gut bacteria in bees are always present in all bees, and there's another 4 or 5 which are usually present, which compares quite significantly to the number of gut bacteria in humans. Within the gut, from the mouth to the anus, both within the bee and within the human, but the bee I'm going to talk about, different bacteria are present in different parts of the gut. It's not all bacteria are spread throughout the gut. There's different bacteria in different parts of the gut performing different functions. The 5 main species of bacteria present in bees are Snodgrassella alvi, named after a very famous American bee scientist called Snodgrass. You may have seen his very excellent drawings on all aspects of bee physiology. There's another one, Gilliamella apicola, 2 species of Lactobacillus and a Bifidobacterium species. And together, these 5 species comprise 95 to 99.9% of all the bacteria in almost all bees. They're essential for the health of the bees. There's a mutual dependency developed over many millions of years between these bacteria and bees. These 5 bacteria can only survive in bees, although they can be temporarily transmitted between bees, say by trophallaxis or left in cells or in bee bread, but essentially they'll only survive within bees. And bees can only survive with these 5 bacteria in them. Quite a mutual dependency here. The role of gut bacteria, I'll explain as I go through different parts of the gut. Gut bacteria assist the bee in digesting food. For example, when I eat pollen, around pollen, there's a very hard protein shell, which the gut can't break down on its own. So gut bacteria within the gut of the bee break down the very hard protein outer shell of pollen, allowing the nutrients inside the pollen to be more easily digested by the honeybee into nutrients to allow it to survive. It's otherwise indigestible. Other functions of gut bacteria include metabolism, converting nutrients to digestible food, helping food be absorbed through the gut barrier. A lot of the immune functions of bees are assisted by bacteria. The growth and development, it protects against pathogens. Many of the pathogens are effectively blocked by different enzymes and bacteria. It influences some social behavior. Quite surprisingly, that some studies now show that some social behavior of bees are strongly influenced by what gut bacteria is inside the biome of the bee. If we look at the gut of a bee, essentially there are four main parts. There's the mouth, obviously. Then we come to the crop or honey stomach, C. Then next to that, there's the midgut, then the hindgut, I and R. The hindgut comprises two parts, the ileum and the rectum. The ileum does a lot of digestion, and the rectum, there's some digestion going on there, but a lot of it is storing poo ready to be excreted. Most honeybee viruses and bacteria and harmful diseases enter via the mouth. As I'll explain later, the hypopharyngeal gland of the bee, which we associate with making royal jelly to feed larvae, is also connected to the mouth, and that's very important in the digestion of nectar. The bacteria in the gut does the mouth. The first point it reaches is the crop. The crop has very few bacteria in it, very few long-term bacteria in it. Most bacteria in the crop are passed very quickly into the midgut and the hindgut. So the crop stores nectar, ready to be taken back to the colony, but bacteria generally is passed into the midgut, into the ileum and rectum. After the crop, there's the midgut. The midgut lacks a cellular cuticular lining. That's the lining of the intestine wall. That's not very cellular. It has very few bacteria kept in that. The midgut really doesn't have bacteria in it. The few bacteria in the midgut are at the end near the ileum. The ileum is interesting because all the excreta from inside the bee's body converges in tubes and ends up at the ileum. So the ileum, where all the waste from all the biological processes in the bee end up passing through the ileum into the rectum. The ileum is a very large, dense bacterial community dominated by three main species of bacteria. The ileum is where most digestion occurs in the body. Most of the bacteria is concentrated here. It's dominated by three species. Most of the bacteria is in the ileum, and this is where most of the digestion of food, a lot of the fighting against diseases takes place. Some of the disease function is in the border with the valve between the midgut and the ileum, but a lot of it is in the ileum. The rectum also contains a large, dense bacterial community dominated by two bacteria. The rectum largely stores poo for excreting, but it also is the last part of the body where the body attempts to extract every last bit of food or nutrients out of the pollen and honey that it's been eating. If you look in more detail, obviously food, nectar and pollen goes into the mouth, but also the bee picks up bacteria and viruses from the environment. They also pick up bacteria from within the hive, say by trophallaxis, from being fed by other bees and from cleaning poo and cleaning larval cells out. They go into the crop, few bacteria, and most of the bacteria there come from nectar and from the hive environment. After we get the midgut, the few bacteria mostly adjacent to the pylorus. The pylorus is the valve between the midgut and the ileum. That's the valve there. So there's some bacteria there. is quite critical in fighting off bee diseases and fighting harmful bacteria. So that's an important part of the bee's immune system. It then goes into the ileum, where a lot of digestion and fighting diseases occurs, and then into the rectum. Each of these three compartments contains specialized bacteria. They come from different parts of the environment. Bacteria in the crop, in the honey stomach, are obtained from food sources and cleaning the hive. They're not long-term bacteria. It's not a clean environment. There's obviously bacteria in there, but the bacteria don't stay very long. Either they useful bacteria and passed into the midgut and hindgut, or they regurgitated out. Bacteria in the midgut are obtained from both food sources as well as from other bees, both from prophylaxis and from cleaning the hive. And bacteria in the hindgut are obtained from other bees, cleaning the nest excreta, prophylaxis, and eating stored pollen and honey. So depending on which part of the gut we're looking at in the bees, the biome has a very important function in each part. The bacteria in each part of the biome is quite different. It's not one big mass of homogenized bacteria. The larval gut contains few bacteria. It varies by season. A lot of the bacteria in the crop varies by season, which implies it comes in via bee bread or nectar. A lot of the bacteria is very seasonal, apart from the very core 5 species. So it implies it's pollen you get it from. If you look at larvae and pupae, there are some gut bacteria in larvae and pupae that it has an active biome. But as the pupae is about to emerge from the pupal cell, it sheds all its gut bacteria. So a worker or a drone coming out of a cap cell when it's been born has a totally clean gut, not 100%, but it's 99.99% clean of all bacteria. So it's starting fresh. So from the minute it emerges, the newly born worker bee or drone, it starts eating pollen and nectar and cleaning the cell and generally picking stuff up from within the colony. And that's where its biome starts and forms. After about day 9, it's got a fully functioning biome. It had a 0 functioning biome when it emerged from its cap cell. So the newly emerged bee develops a few complement of microbes, starting from the minute it emerges from its cell. It obtains these by feeding, cleaning empty cells, caring for the brood, tending to the queen, and interacting generally with other bees, say by prophylaxis. And the biome is complete by day 9, goes from 0 on day 1 to complete in day 9. Transitioning to a forager. This is an interesting part. We're commonly told that the hypopharyngeal gland produces royal jelly to feed to growing larvae. Lots less common knowledge is that when the worker bee transitions to a forager, the hypopharyngeal gland is still active, but it produces very little royal jelly. What its main function from then on is to produce enzymes to convert nectar to honey. So the hypopharyngeal gland has quite a different function in young bees than it does in foraging bees. It's used to produce royal jelly in colony bees to feed to larvae. Once it becomes a forager, its main function is to produce enzymes mixed in the crop to start converting nectar to honey. It's quite a different function. Digestion of food. Bees digest food using enzymes. On their own, bees can't eat food. They can absorb it into their body. It'll stay there and it'll be excreted out. There's enzymes in the gut, in the hindgut, in the ileum and midgut, which breaks down food into its nutrients that can be absorbed through the gut wall into the bees. Enzymes are organic catalysts that do other things like speed up the conversion of nectar to honey and help pollen digestion by breaking down the very tough protein cell wall that's there to protect the internal nutrients within pollen. Some of these enzymes can be produced by bees, but a lot of them can only be produced by bacteria. Without the bacteria in a honeybee's gut, the bee couldn't live more than a few days. So digestion, as well as other functions like the immune system, a lot of social behavior, is very dependent on these 5 always present bacteria in all honeybees and the 4 or 5 other bacteria that are usually there. I mentioned this already, that the hypopharyngeal gland changes its function from when it's used in hive bees to produce royal jelly, within foragers, where its main function is to produce enzymes to convert nectar to honey. The hypopharyngeal gland in foragers produces an enzyme called invertase. One of the main constituents of nectar is the sugar sucrose. The invertase converts sucrose into glucose and fructose. And glucose and fructose very, very approximately are 50-50 in honey. It produces diastase, which converts starch into short-chain sugars, and it produces glucose oxidase, which regulates the amount of hydrogen peroxide in honey. And hydrogen peroxide in honey is one of the main chemicals that gives honey its antibacterial properties. The enzymes break down sugar into simpler sugars, makes the honey more acidic and thus more bacteria resistant. So the production of honey with enzyme produced in the hypopharyngeal gland and other enzymes in the gut has quite a significant effect on the beneficial properties of honey in breaking down the sugars into simpler sugars that can be absorbed and giving more antibacterial properties. Enzymes in the crop inhibit the growth of bacteria. It's the bee's first line of defense. There's not many bacteria in the crop. They tend not to stay there. Lactobacilli, which is typically found in yogurts and supermarkets, is a very good yogurt producing bacteria for humans as well. Lactobacilli produce lactic acid during the conversion of nectar to honey, and lactic acid inhibits the growth of yeasts. If there's too much water in honey, the yeasts tend to ferment, and the lactic acid produced by the lactobacilli bacteria makes the honey more acidic, which inhibits the growth of yeasts. So lactobacilli are crucial for the fermentation of pollen to bee bread as well. A lot of species of lactobacilli, and they're widely found in animal guts. It's a very beneficial organism. When they're out collecting pollen, foragers mix pollen with saliva and regurgitated honey. And this makes the pollen into a sticky ball, which they attach to the back legs. The regurgitated saliva and honey contains enzymes and lactobacilli. And while it's on the back legs of the bee being taken back to the colony, it's already started fermenting and being converted into bee bread. And lactobacilli are believed to provide bee bread with a lot of its antimicrobial properties, which it has when it's stored in the colony, and it's one of the reasons it doesn't go off. Bees just store it for months and months on end, and it doesn't go off. It's believed to be the lactobacilli in it and the antibacterial products that is produced. It also minimizes bacterial infections transmitted to bees and larvae. So a lot of these gut bacteria are very critical to the well-being of the colony. Crop is used only to store nectar. Nectar regurgitated in the hive, deposited in cells for ripening into honey and just for storage. For nutrition, the bee digests honey, bee bread, and water. There's a valve between the crop and the midgut called the proventriculus. The proventriculus is like combs, and what the proventriculus does is it goes through the nectar and filters out pollen, and it pushes the pollen into the midgut, leaving the nectar in the crop and pushing pollen into the midgut, where it'll go to the hindgut and be digested. So for nutrition, bees digest honey, bee bread, and water, but it's passed very quickly through the crop into the rest of the body and into the hindgut, where it's broken down and absorbed through the gut wall and used by the cellular processes by the bee. From the crop, food is moved to the midgut. The midgut is the first point of contact between digested pathogens and the bee's natural immune system. The midgut includes a small number of microbes, as I said earlier, mainly located towards the end of it, near a valve called the pylorus. And the pylorus is, again, a valve between the midgut and the hindgut. The malphagian tubes, which bring all the excreta and waste products from all the body of the bee into the gut, they all terminate at that valve there. That valve has a high density of bacteria critical for the bee's immune system. That's the first point of contact an alien bacteria has with a bee's immune system. One of the main bacteria there is called Frishella perara. It's the main bacteria at that valve. It's not generally found in other parts of the body. It might be minimal just by spreading, but that's where that bacteria is stored. It strongly activates the immune system. The hindgut consists of the ileum and the rectum. Each has a unique bacterial community. The bacteria in the ileum and the rectum are very different. 99% of gut bacteria in the bee is located in the hindgut. The hindgut absorbs water, salt, minerals, other nutrients, breaks down pollen and honey. The hindgut is critical for bees' digestion. And the rectum contains microbes and undigested food and undigested pollen ready to be excreted. But there are bacteria in there at the last line of feeding to extract what nutrients it can out of the excreta before excreting the husks and so on. Some foods contain substances that are toxic to bees. Specialized bacteria produce enzymes that are able to detoxify a lot of the historically harmful chemicals that bees eat. For instance, the cell wall of pollen contains pectin. Pectin is very toxic to bees. The bacteria in the midgut produce enzymes that break down pectin, allowing the bee to digest the nutrients inside the pollen without the pectin harming the bees. Foragers generally exposed to various pathogens, and the gut microbes help to initiate an immune response. The problem today is bees have developed over millions of years a very good immune system to fight off historical pests and diseases. Some minor examples are the American foul brood, which is mainly transmitted by beekeepers using dirty tools, but bees generally over millions of years have produced a very good immune response. The problem is bees today are up against a lot of harmful substances that they haven't had thousands or millions of years to evolve a good protection against. Some microbes form protective layer on the wall of the gut, which don't allow harmful chemicals to go into the bee's body and hinders the flow of pathogens and toxic substances into the bee's body, but does allow nutrients to go through. I'll talk about antibiotics. American foul brood in some countries and European foul brood in Australia and other countries are quite routinely fed to bees, particularly by commercial beekeepers who can get these antibiotics easily to kill bacteria. Broad spectrum antibiotics. The trouble with them is, although they may kill European foul brood bacteria and some forms of American foul brood, they kill a lot of the beneficial bacteria in the bee's gut. So just feeding antibiotics to bees to treat bacterial diseases like European foul brood harms the natural biome. It kills off the natural biomes. They're very harmful to bees in general. We should use integrated pest management, absolutely minimize the use of antibiotics, except where absolutely essential, because they're too harmful to the welfare of bees, because they harm the beneficial gut bacteria in the bee's biome, as well as harmful bacteria. We must encourage the beekeepers we come across to use integrated pest management as much as possible. Pesticides. I wrote an article on this for the American Bee Journal. Pesticides mainly come from two sources. Miticides used to manage varroa, which are fed by beekeepers to the colony, or pesticides and fungicides applied agriculturally to crops and turned to the colony by foragers. I want to single out Roundup here for a bit of a discussion. I wrote this article on the biome for the American Bee Journal, and I singled out what I could find about Roundup, because there's quite a bit written on it. And the editor of the American Bee Journal, who I have a good relationship with and the highest respect for his integrity, everything I wrote about Roundup, he wanted to see in writing in a peer-approved journal. I think he was really concerned of being sued by the Roundup people. In the end, he pretty much cut out all the Roundup things because he wasn't convinced that what was written in peer-reviewed academic journals would stop him being sued. It's a very difficult relationship. The American Bee Journal, very widely read bee magazine, disseminating a lot of information about harmful chemicals. I don't blame the editor for this. I think he does a really good job. I can see the pressures that are upon him. There's a demonstrated relationship between miticide use and declining colony health. As examples, the use of miticides and pesticides by harming the gut bacteria, there's a reduced immune response to pathogens. It's been shown that colonies that are exposed to higher levels of miticides have higher levels of other diseases. Difficulty digesting food. They can't break down pollen so easily or absorb nutrients. Decreased sugar and peptide production in the gut. There's a lot of harmful effects of pesticides on bees. A lot of this is because either they kill off beneficial bacteria in the biome or they interfere with the workings of the enzyme. The effect of pesticide A may have some effect on a bee. The effect of pesticide B has another effect on the bee. The effect of pesticides A and B together could have a totally different effect. It could have more harmful effects. And as the University of California has shown, pesticide A may have one harmful effect, pesticide B may have another harmful effect. Combining the two together may have less of a harmful effect, or in other cases, more of a harmful effect. The effect of combining pesticides is a very problematic problem to unravel. Probiotics. Humans in the form of yogurt eat a lot of probiotics to improve the beneficial bacteria in our gut. And from what I've seen of probiotics in supermarkets, it's a very limited range of beneficial bacteria. Most of it is lactobacilli. Recently, there's been a move commercially to feed bees probiotics as well. It's difficult to say whether this is a good or bad effect on colonies. Randy Oliver, very highly regarded beekeeper and researcher in California, says that when he feeds probiotics to his colonies, he found no improvement at all in colony health. So I think it needs further unraveling of what's happening with this, or maybe changing the gut bacteria. But there are only 5 or 10 gut bacteria that are critical to the bee, but maybe other ones can help as well. In summary, the biome is a critical part of a bee's biology. It's composed of bacteria. What exactly it does is not well understood. It produces enzymes. We don't fully understand what's happening, like we don't fully understand what's happening in the human biome. And it's under threat from beekeepers, agriculture, pesticide use, and domestic pesticides, and beekeepers applying miticides and treatment of things like American foulbrood and European foulbrood. So thank you for listening.